Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and this week's video is kind of a little rant about my favorite plant allies. I feel like I'm in full flow of talking about plants and herbs and connecting with plant spirits and stuff. So I'm pretty excited about this topic also because it's summer and everything is blooming right now. So I thought I would just take a video and rant about my favorite plant allies and why I love them so much, what I use them for or what I work with them on in my craft. I kind of see this a little bit as an offering to these plant spirits because I feel like they're amazing, and if you don't know about them yet, then you should. So shout out to all of these amazing plant allies. I love them very, very much. One thing that I want to say before I get into all of these amazing plants is you will probably notice, and that is something that I've recently noticed, and that's pretty funny, that actually all of the plants that I really click with are either ones that grow around my area or that were either used by Nordic people back in the Middle Ages, for example, or by Germanic tribes. So basically anything surrounding my ancestry is basically in the herbs I love. I don't know why, and I mean I have the advantage that I live pretty far in the north, so where I live there basically grows everything that was used, for example, in the Viking Age in Scandinavia, because of course like the next Viking village is an hour by car away. So yeah, of course the plants that grow around me and that I feel connected with because of my ancestry, of course they overlap. They're basically the same. And also something else that I want to say, this is simply my own UPG. This is the energy that I'm getting from these plants and what I personally use them for. Nothing that I say really has a historical basis. If you want me to make a video on more historical facts about these plants, then let me know. This video will just be my UPG rant. So first of all, let us start with probably my all-time favorite, and that is mugwort. I know there are so many people raving about mugwort, but there's a reason for that, because mugwort is amazing. I first really encountered mugwort when I moved into this apartment a few years ago, because it grows all around the block. And I mean, I live in a big city, but mugwort is just such, I was about to say they're such a pest, but they just grow rampantly anywhere. So around here, mugwort just grows next to the street and they still get huge, like they get bigger than me. So they are living their best lives around my block. So that is how I encountered mugwort for the first time, because in fall, early fall, I would say, everything is full of mugwort around here. Whenever I go to my bus station, I see so much mugwort, and at some point I was like, oh, what's that plant? And I googled it and I found out, hey, it's mugwort, nice. So starting spring and ending in very late fall, I see mugwort every single day whenever I take a walk around my block, and I love that so much. I feel like the energy of mugwort is kind of cold, like it feels cool to me, it's not necessarily warm. I also kind of associate it with the moon, definitely. And it's kind of cold, but it's not standoffish. It's not like unapproachable. It's just a little bit cool. It's chill, I would say. I also associate mugwort hugely with the element water. And that has one specific reason. Mugwort is probably the greatest herb that you can work with for divination, to enhance your intuition, to open up your clairsenses, to become more psychic. You can use it before you want to go to sleep, to maybe induce some visions while you sleep. You can burn it as incense while you meditate, or while you're going, or before you're going on spirit flight. You can even drink it as a tea before bed to induce visions, or drink it as tea before divination or meditation or spirit flight, anything like that. Like, anything where you have to kind of get into a little bit of a trance or open up your psychic senses, things like that. Mugwort is applicable to that. That's also because mugwort is a little bit psychoactive. Some people react to it more strongly than others. I personally don't react to it that much. I have to burn quite a lot of mugwort to feel that it's actually psychoactive, but I know people personally that react to it more strongly. So for me, it's more like relaxing, like deeply relaxing. But mugwort, in my experience, can also be used for protection. It is awesome for that. Or for banishing, so if you want to banish something, then you can burn mugwort. I personally have a bundle of mugwort right there next to my altar, hanging around as a little protection charm. So I love mugwort for that. You can just hang a bundle in your home and that will already be protective. All right, next up is oak. And oak has always been my favorite type of tree. Even before I even got into witchcraft, oaks were always my favorite trees. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but the way that they grow, like they don't have very straight branches, they're always a little bit curvy and wiggly, and their leaves are also curvy and wiggly, and I don't know, I kind of love that. So I always clicked with oak trees. I personally definitely associate oak trees with planet Mars and fire. Oak trees have such an amazing fiery energy. They're extremely energetic and in your face. And yeah, again, oak trees grow all around my area. I have a really tiny little park, basically right next to my house, where it's basically just 4 trees and that's it. So it's not really a park. It's a little bit of grass with some plants. But there's a huge fat ass oak tree right in the middle, and it's impressive. It's so impressive. It's so huge. I honestly don't even really use oak trees in my workings. I just like their energy and I connect to them, but I actually haven't used any part of them in workings apart from maybe oak bark. I kind of use that in incense blends, but that's about it. And I've only recently started using oak bark in incense blends, which I would highly recommend because it smells amazing. But apart from that, not really. I would love to have a wand made from oak. That would be amazing. But apart from that, I mainly just like to feel their energy, like sit by their roots and read a book and like feel their extremely fiery, passionate, vital energy. I don't know, it just feels good. But if I were to use oak in magic, I would definitely use it for protection, like a more active kind of protection. It's not like a passive kind of, you're not getting here protection. It's more of a come here and I will fuck you up kind of protection. Because of the Mars aspect, of course, it's more offensive. Apart from the protection aspect, I would probably also use it for like self-empowerment because of this fiery energy, like self-empowerment spells, maybe self-confidence, vitality spells. Like if you're lacking energy, I feel like oak would be amazing for that. And yeah, lastly, I hugely associate the oak tree with Thor, and that is probably not just me. I think that that's actually a historical thing. I think that has a historical basis, but I'm not sure. I would have to read up about that again, but I personally do. Because of its energy, it feels a lot like Thor. All right, next up, very, very different plant, yew trees. And you will realize that these are a lot of trees because I love trees. I don't know why, I just click with them. But yew trees are very, very different to oak trees. Yew trees are, or I personally associate them with like death, rebirth cycles, but especially death. I don't think I'm alone with that. I think that's a general thing. Especially noticeable because I don't know if it's all around the globe like that, but especially in Germany, yew trees are usually planted on cemeteries and graveyards. So of course they have this association with death. But some people also think that the world tree in the Nordic traditions, Yggdrasil, is a yew tree and not an ash tree, because yew trees are evergreens and ash trees are not. So some people think that yew trees symbolize Yggdrasil, so that would also kind of make sense. I feel like because of its general association with like rites of passage, death, rebirth cycles and stuff like that, I feel like it would make sense, and that would make the yew tree also great for traveling between the worlds. I personally hugely associate it with hell. I'm probably not the only one who does that, because of course it's associated with death, and there is a reason for that, because like most of the parts of the plant are toxic. You can't even touch its sap because that already is toxic. So if you want to like get a branch from a yew tree, then make sure to have protection on, because you can't touch the sap, that's toxic. The only thing about yew trees that's not toxic is the flesh of their fruit, but the seed also is highly toxic. So it's a very, very deadly plant. I feel like yew trees definitely have a very dark, more mysterious kind of energy. They would make a great wand for a necromancer, definitely. But I feel like they would also be awesome for baneful workings. So yeah, it's another plant that I just connect with, I just click with, I just like their energy, but I haven't used it in spells because of course it's so highly toxic, I just don't dare. Alright though, finally another plant that is not a tree, ground ivy. That is a plant that I have only connected with quite recently, I think last year, the year before that, I don't know for sure, but I have only quite recently connected with ground ivy because it's also like a plant that you don't really notice, because it's a tiny little petite plant that grows right on the earth with small little more rounded dark green leaves. The only time you might maybe see them is, or notice them, is when they're blooming, because they have wonderful purple flowers that are very, very pretty. But apart from that, you probably won't notice them because they're just so far on the ground, they're dark green, so at least I have never noticed them. But ground ivy is also extremely abundant around me. The little park that I was talking about with the little area of grass and 3 trees and like some plants has a lot of ground ivy. On the cemetery nearby where I like to go, also a lot of ground ivy. So I can basically get it anywhere, which is amazing because it's another plant that is very, very, very amazing for divination, spirit flight, trance work, anything like that. I have successfully used it with mugwort, like together in combination with mugwort, a lot. In general, I feel like it goes very, very well with mugwort. The only thing I sadly don't really like about ground ivy is how stinky it is when you burn it. So sadly, I can't use it in incense blends, which is pretty sad because I would love to do that, but it's so stinky that I will never use it in incense blends. All right, next up is juniper, another, well, it's a shrub, but sometimes it grows as a tree. It's big, so tree shrub thingy that does grow around my area, but sadly nowhere where I could snip some branches and use it. So another plant that I sadly have only worked with in forms that I could buy elsewhere. Nothing that I could have foraged around here because for some reason all of the juniper trees, shrubs, bushes grow in other people's backyards or front yards, and I don't want to snip branches of those, so yeah. So sadly I wasn't yet able to get any of the branches with needles. I've only worked with the berries, but the berries are also great because I love using them in incense blends. I personally feel like juniper is very like masculine, active, that kind of principle, and I feel like its energy is very fiery. So I would personally use it for like cleansings, but especially also banishings, exorcisms, things like that, protection. Anything like that, I feel like juniper is great for. I would love to have a smoke wand made from juniper so that I could use that to cleanse my apartment. Sadly, I don't. Maybe at some point I will find a wild juniper shrub and be able to forage some of it to make a smoke wand, but sadly at this point I don't have one. But I love doing that. The next one is, yay, another tree. But this time it's the birch tree, and that is honestly very, very different to the plants that I usually connect with, because this one I feel like it's so motherly. It's kind of, I feel like its energy feels like a motherly hug. It's very nurturing, very warm. I feel like it's very, very Venusian, and the element that I would associate it with would definitely be earth. So that is the kind of vibe. Things that I really, really like to use it for is, for example, to inscribe runes on the bark. So sometimes birch trees will kind of peel off some of its bark, and you can just snip it right off, take it home and use it. Like, you don't have to hurt a birch tree to use its bark. That is awesome. And since some birch trees, or most birch trees, have very, very white bark, you can use it for any kinds of writing on it, putting sigils on it, putting bind runes on it, anything like that. So that is awesome. And then afterwards, of course, you can burn it very comfortably. And that makes, for me personally, an awesome protection spell, for example. I love using birch for protection, especially the bark, and just simply draw a bind rune on it or a sigil or something, burn it, bam, there you go. But of course you could also put that into spell sachets or things like that, or just keep it somewhere in your pocket. I love to do that. But I would personally also use birch, but maybe more the leaves than the bark, for things like fertility, pregnancy things, childbirth, anything surrounding that area. I also associate it very much with Frigg. For some reason, I have always read that it's also associated with Freya, but I kind of feel like Freya is much more fiery than a birch tree is. So I kind of feel like specific aspects, I would say yes, that makes sense with Freya. But apart from that, I would personally see it more as an association with Frigg. But well, fight me about that. Another very, very similar herb that I really love and that I've only quite recently connected with is Angelica. And what you would probably most often use is the root. You can get that basically anywhere because you can also use it as a tea. Sadly, Angelica is native around where I live, but for some reason it doesn't grow anywhere around me. I think there's just not enough wild spaces where it could grow. So I haven't personally seen it anywhere here. But when I recently went to Iceland, I saw it everywhere. They were just then popping up because it was spring and everything was just at that point like starting to grow back. So the Angelicas were very, very tiny little planties, and usually they grow very, very big. So we would just see the old died off ones from the last year, and next to it the tiny little plantlets that were peeking up in spring. That was very, very cute. And this is probably also an unpopular opinion, because what I've always read is that Angelica is associated with the fire element and it's very active and things like that, and I personally don't really see that. Maybe that changes once I could take a moment to just maybe meditate with a living plant or something, but just intuitively from working with the root, I see it as being very, very similar to birch. So more passive, more feminine, if you want to call it that, but more passive than active, more like nurturing and things like that. So yeah, I would use it for similar things as birch. Although I personally would not use it for things that surround like pregnancy, childbirth, things like that, but more so for like cleansings and removing hexes and curses and banishings and things like that, which is pretty handy because I feel like Angelica is amazing, or at least Angelica root is amazing in incense blends. So you can just burn some Angelica root and cleanse your house with it maybe. I love using Angelica for that kind of stuff, but also protection. I love using Angelica root for protection. Alright, the next one, finally, not a tree, and it's one that I only recently connected. You probably know that because you saw a vlog. My most recent vlog was about connecting with this plant, and that is blackberry. I have been surrounded by blackberry bushes my entire life. They are so abundant wherever I went, basically. Although, well, the 1 year that I lived in Berlin, that's an exception. But apart from that, like, northern Germany is full of blackberries. So I've been surrounded by that my entire life, and I've never really noticed it that much, although we always went blackberry picking and eating them whenever we saw them, so they've been there in my life always. So I really love it for that. I see this plant as kind of a contrast in itself. I kind of feel like while it is kind of passive and like more warm and relating to like fertility and love and things like that, it's also very active and can be used for baneful workings. So I feel like there is a big contrast within this one plant, which I really love. And I personally kind of associate this plant with Freya because it is more feminine, more passive, relating to love and fertility and things like that, but also very fiery and passionate and active and things like that. The plant itself, though, is kind of reserved, let's just say it like that. I mean, if you look at a blackberry plant, you probably don't think, oh, that's a very welcoming plant, let's hug it. No, it has huge thorns, so no, it's more standoffish. It's not that easy to approach it, but it's very rewarding once you do. And I love plants that aren't that easygoing. Like blackberry is like, if you don't give me an offering, I will take one because I will sting your finger and take some of your blood. And I kind of love that. That's just badass. And I mean, it's awesome because it's not toxic, so you can use whatever part of it that you want. You can use the leaves for tea, you can eat the fruit, you can pick the flowers and do something for that. What I also really love is that bees also love blackberry flowers. It's so cute. We have some huge blackberry bushes around my area and they're always full of bees. I love that. So I would personally probably like use the thorns and things like that for more baneful workings. I have actually done that quite recently. I have made them into an oil. I would also probably use like the flowers for like love, self-love, things like that, and the berries for fertility things. So there is a lot that you can work on with blackberry, which I love. It's very versatile. And then lastly, I had to mention mint, which sadly I have not found growing around my area, although it does. Wild mint, like the very specific type of wild mint, does grow around here somewhere, but I haven't encountered it yet, so I would be very happy to find it at some point. But in general, all types of mints, like the whole mint family, I love it. It's so refreshing. It's like a cool breeze of fresh air. I feel like it's very mercurial, and of course, I mean, if you are looking for an herb that corresponds with the air element, then probably any mint plant is quite that. It's very airy, very mercurial. So I really like to use it for anything that has to do with mental activities, mental tasks, communication, your memory, anything like that. But I also hugely associate it with new beginnings. So whenever I would want some change and some new beginning, basically some fresh air, then I would also use mint for that. And probably if you would think about especially peppermint, which is kind of a mint hybrid, but I would count it into the mint family. So if you think of peppermint, it is awesome for money drawing, for any kind of money spell. So that is also something that I really like to use mint plants for. And it does amazing in incense blends. I know I'm talking about incense blends all the time, but I love making incense blends, like custom ones. And mint is just amazing because there are a lot of plants where if you would take a leaf and it smells great and you burn it, it smells awful. Like ground ivy, for example. It's just very stinky. But mint just smells great when you burn it, and that's a very rare occurrence. So I am extremely happy about that. So if you see any incense blends that have to do with anything like new beginnings or mental things, communication, stuff like that, you will probably see some mint in there. And yeah, those were my favorite plant allies at the moment. But there are also some that I would like to connect to deeper, that I've quite recently found that I would like to connect more. The first one is hazel, which also grows around here everywhere. It has always grown around me and I've never noticed it. But I very quite recently, like a few days back actually, found actually quite a few very big hazelnut trees. Shrubs. I don't know if they are bushes or trees because those were huge. and they are growing their nuts at the moment, and I've never seen hazelnuts while they're still green and growing and developing, and that was very fascinating. And I touched the leaves and they were so nice and velvety, and yeah, I don't know, it just felt very calming and nice. So I really would like to deepen that relationship with hazel. Also rowan trees, they're also very much associated with Thor, so I would love to get more deeply into that. They're also growing all around my area, so perfect, they are everywhere. I could probably harvest a lot of the berries all the time. And lastly, one that I've encountered while connecting to blackberry, hops, which also grows everywhere around my area, and it's winding up and it's just cute. The leaves are very, very pretty, and I don't know if you have seen some hops, I don't know if it's fruits, I don't know, the little hops things that hang off the plant. They are very cute, the light green ones. They look a little bit like pine cones, but green and small and squishy and soft. I don't know, I really like that. And I would just like to use it for binding spells, because of course it winds around other plants and it's very sticky, and I don't know. It just kind of spoke to me, so I would really like to get to know it more. With that being said, before I close off this video, as always, Patreon shout out. Thank you so much to Nick, Sean, Emrys, Celine, Smolketa, Josh, Virginie, Joseph, Elinura, David, Christine, Rixie Business, Valo, Annalena, Bast, Kirby, Ashley, Erica, Glacier, Fabienne, Anna, Laura, Kristen, John, Ivy, Phoenix, Anton, Jenny, Tyler, Maggie, Misty, Amy, Colette, Tel, Timothy, and Coffee, or the honorary gossip squirrel. As always, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up. And of course, you can check out my other socials or my shop for ethically and sustainably sourced witchcraft and paganism tools. Of course, if you want to support me, then you can check out my Patreon. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!